Good evening, race fans, and welcome to round number 2 of the Team Goon Squad F1 Challenge. We are back here today for the ANSE 3D Spa Day Grand Prix here today at Spa. We are back, well, I say back, but we are here for the first time in Belgium here at the Spa Grand Prix circuit. And we are going to have a fantastic race for everyone watching here today. My name is Mason Heimbaugh with Team Goon Squad, bringing you today's action, 1080p, 60 frames a second. And I hope everyone is as excited as I am. We have a little bit of a smaller grid here today, given the, well, just how many people we've had show up for our series here, and given how many people have come out and shown up. We always appreciate everyone's efforts to show up for every race. And as currently out on track, we have some drivers that are currently making their qualifying laps around currently as we speak. So we are going to take the time to have a look at who is going to place where on the grid, starting out here for the first heat race of the series here today. And I also have to mention as well, we will not have live race control for this race here today. Unfortunately, our race control operator had to take some time away from the race control booth to attend to some real life issues. So hopefully Demarest is doing all right. Thoughts and prayers going out here in the commentary booth. But as we are looking on our screen currently, Daniel Beauchamp in the 451 machine, currently putting his first timed lap around Spa here today, and quite a few other drivers here are doing exactly the same thing. We have Finley Fitzsimmons also doing just that. Now we can see here on our track map as well just where exactly everyone is on the track currently. So Finley Fitzsimmons coming through the final chicane here before he reaches that final straightaway DRS zone. There he goes, DRS open for that qualifying. Get as much speed as he possibly can there. Troy Banks clicking off a time of 1:43.3. Very impressive work here from a lot of these guys here. A lot of them are very close to one another in time, I would have to say. There are a few variances here and there, and especially once these cars sort of get out of the draft of one another, that's where it really starts to shine for a lot of these drivers. Daniel Beauchamp, you can see on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, setting all purple sectors for this race here today, clicking off an impressive 141.5. That's going to place himself at the front of the starting grid here today. Going to be side by side with Troy Banks. And that's going to be very interesting. The first turn here at Spa can be, can be make it or break it for your race, at least in the first lap, first turn of the race here at Spa. And through Eau Rouge, it can get very interesting in these cars. These are very stable here at Spa, and that is, well, to most of you watching that are familiar with Formula One, that watch Formula One, will know that these cars are very, very capable of moving very quickly through this track and maintaining their speed quite impressively. It's fantastic what these cars can do here, and you can see the wind streams, or the wind tails, whatever you like to call them, whatever you prefer to call them. You can see them trailing behind the cars. Always love to see that. And we can also take a look at some of the tire compounds being used by some of these drivers here as we ride on board. Look at Mark Martinez making his I believe, second lap around, going to complete his qualifying for the race here today. But looking at tire compounds at the moment, we have Daniel Beauchamp on the soft compound, Fitzsimmons on the medium, Troy Banks going to be on the soft as well, Gareth Mcallister also rocking the soft as well. So really only Manuel Gomez and Finley Fitzsimmons are both on the medium compound, yellow compound tires. And it's very interesting to see kind of where these guys are all placing on in the starting grid there. You can see Mark Martinez getting very, very loose that rear end, wanting to get away from, able to keep it together, not letting that car get away from him too quickly. It's going to cost him a little bit of a time, but still keeping it out on track without any damage done to the car is always a win in my book. But anywho, we're going to have 4 drivers starting off on the same soft compound tire here and 2 drivers on the medium. A little light in numbers on today's attendance list, but that is a-okay. And we have another driver joining in as well, Corey Sabo in the number 4 machine. And that is actually going to wrap up Mark Martinez's lone qualifying. We're going to take a look here at Alex Roggenbuck, the 8th driver, yet to set a time here for himself for qualifying to figure out where he's going to place himself on the starting grid here. And we can see Daniel Beauchamp, Corey Sabo, Finley Fitzsimmons, top 3 at the moment. Troy Banks as well going to be in that top 4 starting grid here. Will Alex Roggenbuck be able to crack into the top 3 here on these intermediate tires that he is on currently? Right now, Finley Fitzsimmons is the only driver that has been able to do so here currently. Alex Roggenbuck is going to have a potential opportunity to make that happen here, but it does not look like he's going to have enough time here as he makes his way through the final chicane, and there it goes. Not going to be able to crack into the top 3 here, getting a little, seems a little loose on the entry, or on the exit of that final chicane. But that is going to wrap up our qualifying here, as everyone seems to have completed all the qualifying laps that they want to do here, using either both the 2 qualifying laps that they have, or just sticking to 1 and hoping for the best. But right now, as it seems, our starting grid seems to look like Daniel Beauchamp starting first, Corey Sabo in 2nd, Finley Fitzsimmons in 3rd, Troy Banks in 4th, Gareth Mcallister in 5th, Manuel Gomez in 6th, Mark Martinez in 7th, and Alex Roggenbuck starting in 8th, if I am not mistaken. But we will find out here once the flag has flown for qualifying here, and there we go. We have our results. Here is our qualifying results for today. And here is who is going to start our first race of round 2 of the ANSE 3D Spa Day. Daniel Beauchamp going to be starting out on the front, with Corey Sabo out on his side, Finley Fitzsimmons and Troy Banks right behind them. Gareth Mcallister and Manuel Gomez starting side by side in the 3rd row. Mark Martinez and Alex Roggenbuck rounding out the field in the 4th row. We can see just a view of all of our drivers here currently, as we all patiently wait to start our race here today. And there we go. The 5 lights. Lights are out, and here we go. And looks like Corey Sabo got a little loose there for just a second as he came off the line. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. We have cars all over the place. Troy Banks having a little bit of issue there coming into the first turn. Not sure exactly what the issue there was, but Manuel Gomez able to take advantage of that in 5th place now. Going to work his way through Eau Rouge now. And right now, it seems like this field has thinned out very, very quickly, and I suspected that would happen in that first turn. You could see all the cars making their way down this first straight, long straight here into the first set of chicane. My, oh my. All of these drivers doing fantastic work, but Daniel Beauchamp, the driver that we are going to be looking out for here today, very, very strong driver here in the 451, with Corey Sabo and Finley Fitzsimmons following closely behind, but not quite on the same pace. We'll see if Daniel is going to be able to maintain this pace and maintain that consistency throughout the course of this race here. We have 22 laps here for this first heat race. And I believe for our final shootout, it'll be 11 laps, if I am not mistaken. And that will be our sprint race for the evening. So 22 laps here at Spa. There is going to be a lot of racing to be had here. And I just realized as well that our timing tower is having a little bit of a struggle bus issue at the moment. So we are going to figure out what is happening there. And in the meantime, that is the strangest thing. All right, so it seems like we're having some technical difficulties whenever we have these kind of dual race features or dual races in these events. A little weird with the software. It definitely doesn't seem to like it very much, but we are going to keep on talking about what is happening out on screen at the moment as I work to figure out what exactly is going on with our software here. But Daniel Beauchamp, obviously the man to beat at the moment. Corey Sabo following closely behind in that number 4 machine with Finley Fitzsimmons, the fellow Brit of Daniel Beauchamp. Both of these drivers are very, very close to one another in gap, or in distance at least. Finley Fitzsimmons is about a second behind the 4 of Corey Sabo at this point in time. However, it's a matter of who is able to be consistent every single lap and maintain their speed consistently. It's very, very often you'll see it where a lot of drivers, they're very good some laps, and other laps they're not so good. And that's just how some drivers are. Not every driver is perfect. Everyone wants to be, but it's definitely not something that is very easy to do. So, when you have those variances in it can be it can affect you quite significantly. So we can see here Finley Fitzsimmons came into pit road, not exactly sure what for, but that's going to put him down into 7th place. Now, drivers will have the option to make a pit stop during this race, change out their tires, which they will have to do for the feature race, for this race specifically that we're watching at this point in time. They will have to change tire compound and make that change at some point during the race. When that is completely up to the driver and up to their crew when they want to make that decision. Gareth Mcallister in 3rd place at the moment. A driver who probably wasn't expecting to find himself in 3rd place this early on, but having worked his way up 2 positions, started 5th. Now there's only a field of 8 drivers in this race at the moment. it's... So there's a lot of opportunity to work your way through this field and crack into the top 3, which essentially is in this, with the numbers that we have currently, I think would ultimately be the goal. And that for anyone who wants to be competitive in the championship and compete for those points. Now, again, I apologize for everyone that's looking at the timing tower and is confused at what's going on there. I am also confused. It seems that SDK and iRacing don't work together very well when we have these heat races, and I'm not exactly certain why. But hopefully we will have that fixed for the next time. It is a very strange thing that I am seeing. Yeah. Not exactly sure how to call that off, but anywho, at the moment, we're only on lap 4 of 22, and now ultimately the goal for a lot of these drivers, I think, is going to be just staying as clean as possible, being as consistent as possible, and not letting the driver behind you catch up. It's easier said than done, but ultimately I think that's what a lot of these guys here are going to want to be doing, and are going to potentially be doing here. I think that is what a lot of these guys want to do here. Now, when we're looking at the difference between in speed between a lot of these drivers in what they're doing to increase that speed, or to at least just keep pushing that gap, well, it's a lot of minute things. It's a lot of very subtle things that you usually can't notice too much on screen. So how these guys are charging their batteries, how they're applying that battery usage, and using that power where they're utilizing it, that's going to be key. Now, drivers that are getting close to that chase and are going to have that opportunity where they can open up DRS and gain a little bit more speed and get on that attack, that's another chance where you can increase that lap time, get a little bit more speed going, and keep that momentum moving. It doesn't always mean you're going to get, seconds shaved off of your time, but it might mean the difference between being a tenth behind your competitor and being 2 tenths ahead, or however you want to look at it. There's a number of ways that you can interpret that and kind of use that information. Now, we are going to see here exactly. Okay, well, that's fantastic. All right, but as Gareth Mcallister is working his way through that final chicane and coming out onto the final stretch across the checkered line, and he makes his way out onto the downhill on the approach to Eau Rouge, I have to wonder at this point in time who is going to be, well, who is going to be the driver to take the podiums today. And it's really, there's not really a whole lot of options to choose from. So, I mean, you would think it would be easy. You could say Daniel Beauchamp, Corey Sabo, Gareth Mcallister, who are currently your top 3, since our timing tower seems to not want to cooperate with us today, and and not work with us today. It's being a little funky here, but we're gonna keep working with things here and try and see what we can do. Since everyone can't see the timing tower, and since it doesn't want to display properly, I will go through and tell everyone the order of which drivers are currently in. Daniel Beauchamp in first place, Corey Sabo in second, Gareth Mcallister in third, Troy Banks in fourth, Manuel Gomez in fifth, Finley Fitzsimmons in sixth, Mark Martinez in seventh, Alex Roggenbuck in eighth place, still in pit road. Unfortunately, probably going to find himself out of the race for the evening. Not exactly sure what has happened to the number 70, but it looks like the driver is I think still in the car. I'm not exactly sure. But as we still have drivers racing, still out on track, lap 7 of 22 here. Daniel Beauchamp leading out in front of Corey Sabo, who Corey has, if you're looking at the bottom of your screen at the moment, he's trying his best to keep up with Daniel Beauchamp, but you can see that Daniel is just a little bit faster in near most of the sectors here in Spa. So when you're a driver that's being put in that position, when you don't have the data, when you don't have the information to really try and push yourself and get that time, it's definitely difficult. Now we have some incidents on screen here, or that I'm being made aware of. It looks like that we have Gareth Mcallister involved in an incident here. Let's see if we can have a look at what happened here with Gareth for just a moment. Gareth going sideways. Oh, no. That is going to cost him dearly. As he makes his way safely back out onto track. That is definitely going to cost him quite dearly in terms of time. Now, whether or not that's going to affect his entire race, well, that remains to be seen. Gareth Mcallister is only down one position from where he started, in being that we have Alex Roggenbuck are already resigning from the race, and a Mark Martinez now also in pit road in the number 29 machine. Unsure exactly what is happening down here in pit road and why these drivers are deciding to call it a day, but it seems to be that is what's happening here for some of these drivers. Unfortunate to see that happen here, but as we look at Troy Banks, who has now taken over that third place position, now going to be on the chase of Corey Sabo. But speaking of people on the chase, we can see that right now it's Troy Banks is getting pulled heavily by Finley Fitzsimmons, and looks like he just let up heavily to let Finley by. Unsure if that was due to getting thrown a flag to slow down and let the faster driver by, but it seemed like Troy Banks was doing just fine as far as speed is concerned, but it might have been an iRacing decision. Again, we do not have a live race control here tonight, so unfortunately I will not be able to know exactly when drivers are being served penalties and things of that nature. But right now, Finley Fitzsimmons having worked... Oh, a little bit of a slide. Great work there, pulling it back together. The number 6 of Finley Fitzsimmons now going to be leading out in front of Troy Banks, who for a moment was in the top 3. Now having found himself back into 4th place at the moment, where he started at the beginning of this race. And actually, the top 4 drivers, all 4 of them, have found themselves in the same exact position as where they started here at the beginning of this race. So, all of these guys here doing a great job, actually, of doing exactly as I said at the beginning, just staying consistent, staying clean, keeping your nose clean, not letting yourself get too far ahead, not wanting to push yourself too aggressively. That's where you're going to make mistakes. If you're not 100% sure that you can commit to something, you probably shouldn't do it. That is number one way I would say to get yourself involved in a wreck, get yourself ejected from a race for just not knowing what you're doing. It's definitely a balance game. Now, being that this is technically our feature, and we have still a sprint after this, there is opportunities to be had for cracking into the top 10. Now, normally our top 8 are inverted on the sprint race. So, being that we only have 8 drivers here today, we're going to see, we're going to see the rear of the field. If looking at at everyone's current best lap times. Now, this is just to show the difference in knowledge of this car, knowledge of this track, and just showing the confidence of a lot of these drivers with this absolutely impressive machine that is the Mercedes W12. Looking at everyone's best lap times right now, Daniel Beauchamp currently leader in time with a 1:44 being his best time at the moment. His last time around, he did a 1:45.8. Essentially a second slower than his best lap time. Now, he is doing great work, staying consistent in that time. Corey Sabo doing exactly the same thing. His best time was a 1:45. His last was a 1:46. So, again, nearly a second difference between his best and his last time. Now, we are on lap 11 of 22. We're halfway through this race at this point, or through this heat feature, however you want to call it. And I don't want to say there's exactly opportunity to overtake. There's going to be opportunity for battles or anything like that. It's at this point in the race, when we only have this many drivers and the field is spread out as much as it is. Again, unfortunately, I can't show you the track map. It does not seem to want to work for me, so I am kind of stuck not being able to show you guys that. So, unfortunately, that is going to be how that goes. Sadly. Now, since this broadcast is already going fantastic, we are going to continue on and try and cover as much as we possibly can with as much as we can. Now, we have a change in leader as Daniel Beauchamp made his way into pit road. Corey Sabo is going to take the lead now, and Daniel Beauchamp is going to come out on a different set of tires, if I am not mistaken. He came out. He was out of the pit box in about 4.7 seconds. So very, very quick out of that pit box, and I am not exactly certain what tire that Daniel is going to use for this final half of the race here. If I'm not mistaken, he did start on the soft tire. Unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, we are not able to see the compound that he is currently using due to just how iRacing kind of handles that. So we do not get updated visually what compound he is currently using, and because our timing tower refuses to work, we are unable to know exactly what compound he is using, but I can take a lucky guess and assume that he is on those intermediates, and that is going to carry him through the final, I believe now 9 laps once he crosses the line here at Spa. Corey Sabo now making his way down into pit road. He's going to find himself in the box for a few seconds, getting those tires changed out, and there he is. Off he goes out of pit road, back out onto track. Daniel Beauchamp going to take first place back here once more, and that's going to give him quite the distance to work here at the moment. Daniel Beauchamp is well, moving back to where he started now, at least. Corey Sabo also in the same position now as well. So there's well, there's not really a whole lot of time for these drivers to really make anything happen at this point in time. There's still a few laps left, but because of the distance between all of these guys, right now between Corey Sabo and Daniel Beauchamp, there's a 7-second gap. That is quite a lot when you're speaking in terms of racing, especially in Formula One. It is very, very difficult to make that time up effectively. It's not easy. It is very, very challenging when you are left that far behind the driver in front of you, regardless of whatever position you're in, whether it's you're competing for first or you're competing for last place. It really doesn't matter. When you have that much distance between the driver in front of you, it's very difficult to make up. At that point, you're relying on your opponent to make mistakes, miss your apexes, miss your braking points, be late on the throttle or be early on the throttle and spin out. You're relying on your opponent to make those critical mistakes so that way you can recover that time, and it doesn't always work. Your opponent might have the best race of their career that day, and they might not make a single mistake, and that's just part of racing. That's just what happens in the sport of racing. Now, Finley Fitzsimmons, another driver here who has done a fantastic job of staying consistent. Finley has made his way into pit road already as well. He came in at lap 2. So that makes me wonder if he changed his compound early on once he realized that he was not a fan of those intermediates that we're currently seeing. Those are the tires that he did start with, so I can assume he's either on those soft reds. I can't imagine that he would go to the hard, unless he's a madman. I don't know. I can't say for certain, but that's my assumption. Finley's probably on those soft reds at the moment, just clicking off laps, and he's been on those since lap 2. So I'm sure those are starting to feel a little warm, a little worn, and probably not holding up quite as well as at the start. The soft compound tires, they have the least amount of wear, or excuse me, the most amount of wear per lap so they don't hold up very well for very long. The hard compound being the ones that hold up the longest. The intermediates giving you a good amount of grip for a decent amount of time. And that's what we're seeing Daniel Beauchamp. Oh, and as I click away from Finley Fitzsimmons, he gets loose on the exit of the first turn, or on the exit of the first turn, and loses his front right tire. Gonna find himself down into pit road, and I think that's going to be the end of Finley Fitzsimmons' race. Let's take a look at that one more time here in slow motion. We'll ride on board here with Finley as he makes his way through the first turn. You can see everything looks good, and there it goes. That rear end just wants to get away from him. And here, we can actually back things up here just a little bit more as well. And if you're looking at Finley's wheel, you can see the moment where the engine just freaks out and over revs. Full lock up there from Finley. Not going to be enough. That front right just going to get knocked loose out of position. So, and it's one of those things too. It's nothing that Finley did wrong. Well, to some extent, it's one of those things that when you make mistakes like that, or when things like that happen, whether it was the fault of Finley or whether it was another factor, they happen so quickly that it's difficult to recover from. It's not always savable, and unfortunately for Finley, he just didn't have enough time to recover it. It definitely seemed like the car was stable coming out of that turn, and for some reason just wasn't happy. The car just was not happy with where it was on the track, and just wanted to get away from him. So that's going to be unfortunate for Finley. He's going to find himself out of this race at this point in time. Two drivers now out of the race here today for the ANSE 3D Spa Day for round number 2 of the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. And so far, I hope everyone has enjoyed what they have seen here and enjoyed the action that has unfolded out on screen. I know that it's not exactly side-by-side racing, but when you're speaking in terms of who has the best strategy and overall just best consistency, that is ultimately what we are here for today. Lap 17 of 22. Daniel Beauchamp still our leader of this race. Corey Sabo in second. Manuel Gomez now in third place. Gareth Mcallister going to be in fourth place. Troy Banks in fifth. Mark Martinez in sixth place. And Finley Fitzsimmons in seventh. Alex Roggenbuck in eighth place. Both of those two drivers found themselves out of the race for today. Finley Fitzsimmons falling to a rough incident out of T1. As we are watching Manuel Gomez here in the number 99, having worked his way up 3 positions from where he started. On lap 17 of 22, Manuel is, he's at the moment looking quite fantastic. He's putting down about a minute 48 for his lap times currently. So he's going to be about 2.5 seconds off from Daniel Beauchamp and Corey Sabo's current lap times. But having found himself in third place, he's got a 14-second gap between himself and Gareth Mcallister, who's in fourth place. Manuel just has to stay consistent, keep it clean. At this rate, he'll be able to cross the finish line in third place if he can just keep his nose clean. A little bit of a lockup there, and as he takes it down into pit road, actually, unsure if this is going to be. It is his first time coming down pit road. This will be the first time the 99 has seen pit road. Lap 18 of 22. Having started on the intermediate tire, I have to wonder if Manuel is going to opt to go onto those soft tires for these final 4 laps, a shootout essentially for that number 99, and see what he can do here on a new set of tires. That is a bold strategy as well from Manuel in that number 99, opting to go into pit road very, very late in this race here today. Lap 19 of 22 here. It has been a interesting race for a lot of these drivers here today, with the field having found itself significantly spread out between each other. Again, I would love to show everyone where they are on track as far as all the drivers, but it is refusing to show up for us. So we are going to have to live without it at this time. But we can still show some other information to help explain exactly what's happening out on the track for all these drivers at the moment. Manuel Gomez that we're looking at, excuse me, currently, we have noticed Manuel cracked his way into third place, even despite the slightly slower lap times. Now, that could have just been attributed to the other drivers making their way down into pit road, taking advantage of getting on those new set of tires. But Manuel was the last driver to go down into pit road and get a new set of tires here, as I assume, since it is required that you have a new compound during the main feature race here today at the ANSE 3D Spa Day Grand Prix. And with Daniel Beauchamp having led this race in the majority of this entire race, and practically the last race that we had at Silverstone, where Daniel also dominated the field, I have a feeling that there's going to be a trend here with Daniel, and we're going to see that 4-5-1 conquering a lot of these races here. Daniel is a very consistent driver, very, very good at what he does, and there's a few others here that are looking to be competitive to that 4-5-1, and Corey Sabo, I believe, might be one of them. That number 4 has looked very, very promising, and considering even though Corey has about a 10-second gap between himself and Beauchamp, Corey is still extremely fast behind that wheel. Last time around, did a 145.99. Daniel pulling off a 145.22. So not really a whole lot of time that Corey has to find to close that gap between himself and Daniel. But we'll see as the season progresses and as we get into some more interesting tracks down the road into the season. We'll see how that turns out and what happens for the championship as we have our final lap here at Spa. Corey Sable making his way through the final chicane down the final stretch across the finish line. That is going to be the white flag flying. Excuse me, next time around is our white flag. I apologize. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. A little excited to get things moving on here. Get these drivers re-racked, flipped around, started again. Right now, on the field, Daniel Beauchamp leading this race. Corey Sabo, who we were just watching, in second. Troy Banks in third place. Gareth Mcallister in fourth. Manuel Gomez in fifth. And Mark Martinez in sixth place. Finley Fitzsimmons in seventh. And Alex Roggenbuck in eighth place. Alex and Finley having found their vehicles behind the wall, finishing out their race for today. Crew for the 6 and 70 machine are going to be wrapping things up, closing up shop early here, and heading home. But right now, Daniel Beauchamp in the 451 and the team for the 451 are going to look to win yet another race here for the Formula One F1 Challenge. And across the line, this will be our final lap here at Spa as Daniel Beauchamp finds his way through T1 onto the downhill on the approach of the menacing Rouge. Daniel flying through that section with absolute ease. Corey Sabo on the chase as well, now making his way through Rouge as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this field has, I think it's determined itself at this point in time. Daniel Beauchamp in first, Corey Sabo in second, and Troy Banks in third. Now, unless something happens here in this final lap that we are not made aware of, then that's, well, I can't exactly say for certain. But at the moment, everything is looking fairly solid for all of these drivers here. Daniel Beauchamp only having a few more turns left to go. He is very close to wrapping up his race here today and taking home another podium for the series and for the championship, giving him some more points in the series. And here Daniel goes into the final chicane, out onto the final stretch, across the finish line for first place. Daniel Beauchamp in that 451 had a fantastic race. Corey Sabo now making his way through the final chicane and across the finish line for second place. Troy Banks, followed by Gareth Mcallister for third and fourth. This is actually a little bit of a battle that we have brewing here for third place. Gareth Mcallister on that tail of Troy Banks. Very close, actually, indeed, within a second, about 3/4 of a second to be specific. Gareth Mcallister is on the chase of Troy Banks. But is it going to be enough to take over that third place position? I don't think there's enough. Yeah, that's it, folks. That's going to wrap up the battle there for third place. Both of these drivers having fought very well here for this first heat race feature of the race, or of the day. Manuel Gomez now making his way down the the final stretch, the back stretch, I should say. And that is going to wrap up our first race of the day. We are going to have a little bit of a warm-up and a little bit of a break here in the booth as well. Daniel Beauchamp taking home the win for our first race of the day. Corey Sabo in second, Troy Banks in third. Rounding out your top three drivers here today. Congratulations to all of these guys who participated today. Great work from everyone, keeping everything as clean as possible. There was some fantastic racing from everyone so far. We are going to have a very quick break here in the booth, and we will be right back with more action. Stay tuned.
Driver Carrington gets dumped by Benami. The leaders are winding up here. Daytona, the big one is out.
Welcome back, folks. I hope everyone enjoyed the action that we all saw for the main feature for today. And our lovely, lovely track map has decided to just work for us again for our warm-up here, so we can get a better idea of where everyone is on the track. It's nice when things actually decide to work every now and then, but it isn't always the case. A little bit of a lockup there from Alex Roggenbuck that we are looking on board here at the moment. Looks like Alex was just wrapping up his practice, his warm-up here. Only 2 minutes left to go here for this warm-up, so very short, very quick for all of these drivers as they get ready for the final sprint of the race here today. Right. We only have 1 minute left to go, as this is going to be the final portion of our race here today. Only 30 seconds left to go here for our practice, or rather our warm-up that we are having for the drivers to let themselves get back in the groove of things. See Finley Fitzsimmons actually setting off the only complete lap as well. Oh, Mark Martinez and Finley Fitzsimmons going sideways through Eau Rouge. Not able to hold it together for that one. Hopefully that doesn't seem to be the case for our sprint here. Now we can look at our grid here for our sprint race here today. Alex Roggenbuck starting out first with Finley Fitzsimmons on the outside for the first row. Mark Martinez in third, Manuel Gomez rounding out the second row. Gareth Mcallister, Troy Banks rounding out third row. Corey Sabo and Daniel Beauchamp rounding out the final fourth row. You can hear the drivers ticking away. We are going to also fix something really fast here as well, because I seem to forget to do it every single time. Oh, and we have carnage going into T1. Drivers collecting into one another. Oh, man, that was all over the place, and I didn't even catch all of that. Let's see. Let's take things back here just for a second. Tune back away from the live action for just a moment. I want to see the carnage as it unfolds. We can see here Finley Fitzsimmons out in front, trying to defend the four of Corey Sabo, who's down on the inside going into T1. Finley Fitzsimmons dives, nails Corey Sabo on that left rear. Everyone goes wide at that point, even Daniel Beauchamp getting into the back of, I believe that's Alex Roggenbuck in the number 70. So carnage absolutely ensuing all over this track at the moment. And good news to everyone, everything is working here again in the booth, so that is fantastic. It's going to be a great final sprint race here. 11 laps of a battle that we are going to have here. We can see Corey Sabo is actually leading out in front of Daniel Beauchamp at this point in time. And I'm not sure exactly where that happened, where that took place, as we were trying to figure out what happened in that first turn. It all happened so quickly. We wanted to make sure we had it all documented, or at least figure out what happened for that. But looking at the moment, Finley Fitzsimmons, who was involved in that incident that we were reviewing, here he goes down into pit road actually for the first time. Gareth Mcallister as well, following in the footsteps of Gareth Mcallister. So both of these guys coming down pit road for whatever reason. But Corey Sabo is impressively leading this race, and you could see Daniel Beauchamp right on the tail of that number 4 machine here in the sprint race. So the question is Corey going to be able to have the speed, have the time to keep out in front of that 4.51? We've seen Daniel is extremely fast out on this track, and obviously he worked his way 6 positions all the way up to P2. Now the question is, Corey Sabo was in P2 for the majority of the feature race here, of the main race. And now I'm kind of led to ask myself, does Corey have the ability to keep up, to stay out in front of that 4.51? As I mentioned before, Corey was about a second off from Daniel Beauchamp's pace, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. And if I'm not mistaken, Daniel is going to be put into that DRS opportunity window here rather soon. But even as I say that, Daniel Beauchamp closing that window very, very quickly on that number 4 machine. Oh, going into the final chicane. Down the final stretch here across the finish line. Daniel Beauchamp staying on the tail of that number 4 machine. Here we go into T1. Corey Sabo doing excellent work, getting on that throttle as early as possible, getting that speed, really putting that car down into the ground, letting that downforce do all the work. Going through U Rouge, fantastic work. Daniel Beauchamp still on that tail of that number 4 machine. You can even see on the track map as well. You can't even see the 451. There he goes on the inside, or on the outside actually. Daniel Beauchamp around the number 4 of Corey Sabo, and away he goes. Corey Sabo not sure what to do, even on those soft compound. Corey just not able to keep up with that 451. Daniel Beauchamp. Daniel has impressive work all race long. We have seen nothing but good work happening from all of these drivers here tonight. A few slip-ups here and there, but overall, everyone has done great work just keeping these cars clean as much as they reasonably can. It's definitely challenging. These cars are definitely not something you just hop into and are instantly good at. They require a lot of skill to drive effectively, I would say. Now, with Corey Sabo having found himself back into second place, and if you're looking on the track map as well, you can see how the field is spreading out just a little bit here. Troy Banks in that number 8 machine, making his way through that chicane, final chicane, coming down the back stretch. You can see just behind Corey Sabo, just for a moment there, as the camera panned. Troy Banks is he's kind of in the midst between two packs here. He's probably going to be there for some time unless he can find a little bit more speed somewhere on the track in whatever sector that he can feel comfortable in and get a little bit more pace going. Now, Alex Roggenbuck, who we saw was put out of the race quite early in the feature race. He found himself out of the race for practically the majority of it. I would have to say Alex Roggenbuck is now 4th place going into the sprint. So I'm curious to know how that went down, what exactly happened to that number 70 machine, and what ultimately led that 70 to come down into pit road and stay out of the feature race. Coming back into the sprint race, though, looking very promising. The 70 machine is worked his way to 4th, but down 3 positions from where he started at the moment. So we're really seeing how the speed of a lot of these drivers, you can see the level between them, and just kind of judge how the field is going to progress through the season. It makes me wonder how some of these drivers may want to adapt their driving style, may want to even look into what they can do to find more time in these cars and find more speed and be able to compete. Now, being this is the first season that we've run here in Team Goon Squad with this car, given that it's a brand new car here in iRacing, we fully expect that there's going to be time for the series to grow, for the drivers to learn the cars more, learn these tracks a little bit more with these cars. Because it really changes. It changes quite a bit. I wouldn't say a whole lot, but it really, when you first get into the Mercedes W12 in iRacing, whether you've driven the Indy car, whether you've driven the Dallara Formula car, or whether you've driven the LMP, the prototypes, it's impressive. It's quite impressive. It's unlike anything I've ever driven before, and I'm sure if you're watching at home and if you have never driven anything in iRacing, it would surely knock your socks off as well. It is an impressive work of engineering, this car. Now, Daniel Beauchamp has cracked his way into first place here again, so having a double finish for today might be in the books for Daniel here at lap 6 out of 11. Not a whole lot of time left for a lot of these guys to make something happen. Corey Sabo, really the only driver that is putting the pressure on Daniel Beauchamp, and even the distance between them is starting to grow little by little. But by the time that we see that final lap, I don't think it's going to be too far from one another, I would have to say. Now, the battle for fourth place at the moment. We're riding on board with Alex Roggenbach in the fourth place at the moment, and just having a listen, having a look-see-loo at how the 70 machine is making its way around the track here today. You can see letting Manuel go by in that number 99 machine. A lot of sportsmanship that we're seeing from all of these drivers here as well, and I love to see that up here in the booth. Even if you are competing in this series and you're finding yourself doing well in a good position, letting the driver who's faster go by you, it's usually the courteous thing to do. Not always something that you want to do, especially when you are racing. It is definitely not something you want to do all the time, but it can be something that you do to let the field around you know that, hey, I'm not a jerk. I'm not gonna try and spin you out or anything if you try and pass me. But as we're looking at the track map here as well, you can see the 451 Daniel Beauchamp, who's in first place at the moment, Corey Sabo in second. Just looking at the track map, you can see the distance that is being set between these guys. And right now, Manuel Gomez, Alex Roggenbach, and now Finley Fitzsimmons are starting to form a little bit of a battle here. They're not quite close enough to call it a battle yet, but they're forming in this line. And Finley Fitzsimmons has been a very strong driver here in this race here today as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if that 6 machine is going to find some time here and close that gap. You can see now battle for fourth starting to take place here as Finley closes that gap between himself and the number 70 of Alex Roggenbach. You can see the orange car of Finley Fitzsimmons weaving behind Alex Roggenbach, and I'm sure Alex can see that that number 6 machine right on his tail. But all he's got to do is hold it together here. Lap 8 of 11 coming into the final chicane here. Not a whole lot of lap, not a whole lot. Oh, and that's going to be a real late entry. Oh no. Oh, gets a little bit of a snap there out of the tires from the 70 of Alex Roggenbach, holding it. Oh, and as we look behind him, Mark Martinez getting a little sideways there. Gareth Mcallister coming out of the chicane as well, holding it together. And we heard it there. Mark Martinez got into the wall there just for a moment. Doesn't look like too much damage. It might have just been a scrape of the tires against the wall. But Finley Fitzsimmons has now passed Alex Roggenbach for that 4th place position. So now Finley is going to be on the chase of Manuel Gomez, who's in 3rd place now at this point in time. Finley having worked his way up the field this far, he's he's on that chase. He really wants to see himself get around this number 99 of Manuel, and he might be able to do so here. It's just a matter of if Manuel is going to give him enough room to do so, and he just might. You can see there, Finley Fitzsimmons taking the inside. Oh, and they make contact. Oh, no, Finley goes sideways into the wall. That's going to be the end of the number 6, Finley Fitzsimmons. That's going to end his sprint race here today. Oh, man, in almost the same fashion as the feature. Oh, that hurts for Finley. That is rough. That is definitely rough. Not what you want to see happen here in the final few laps of the sprint race, and ultimately that's going to put Finley out of the sprint race here. But checking back in with our leaders, Daniel Beauchamp and Corey Sabo, excuse me. Both of these drivers have not really moved too far from one another in time. Corey Sabo having fallen to about a little over 3/4 of a second behind Daniel Beauchamp, but still keeping within about a second of that 4.51. So Corey's doing everything he can to stay as close as possible, and maybe even picking up a thing or two from that 4.51. Both of these guys setting off almost identical lap times. Corey Sabo, Daniel Beauchamp, both of these drivers have been extremely competitive all race long, making their way through the final chicane. 2 laps left to go here as we cross the line. Going into T1, it's critical that you make these sharp turns here at Spa correctly. Every time, especially when you're on being chased, like Daniel Beauchamp is at right now, it can be very, very detrimental to your race if you find yourself out of that groove. If you miss your apex, if you miss your breaking point, your opponent is going to notice and they will take advantage of it. And I think Daniel Beauchamp here is very well aware of that, and not letting Corey Sabo get too close to him. Still within striking distance, I would say, if Corey is feeling bold, but not really going to be a whole lot of room, a whole lot of opportunity to do that. Mark Martinez, though, however, looks like he might have had a moment. Not exactly too certain what the incident was, but he's still racing, still out on track, so I would assume that he probably got into the wall a little bit and found himself in not too great of a position. So as we get closer and closer here, our leaders are just about to cross the line here for the final lap here at Spa. I have to say, Daniel Beauchamp is coming in from last week from Silverstone and conquering today here at Spa. It's very great work that we've seen here from Daniel Beauchamp. So excellent work from all of the drivers here as well. Not everyone having probably the race that they want to have, and given the numbers that we have, it's not always going to work in everyone's favor. So have to take it as it is, and hopefully going into the future, into the rest of the season, we will see some more drivers take interest and see the field grow more and more as the season grows on. And we can start to see now as well the rest of the field start to make their way through their final lap of the race here. And right now, Manuel Gomez worked his way into 3rd place and hasn't really left ever since. So Manuel doing fantastic work in the sprint race. Going to take home a third place podium for that, or third place finish for the sprint race. And Daniel Beauchamp looking like he's going to take home both the win for the sprint as well as the feature. And the checkered flag is flying at this point in time. Daniel Beauchamp, Corey Sabo both crossing the line first and second respectively. Now Manuel Gomez working his way through the final half or final sector of the track. Coming through the final chicane. Will he take home his third place finish for the sprint race here today, giving him some points for the championship? And I think he will as he crosses the line for third place. Alex Roggenbuck following behind for fourth. Mark Martinez following behind in fifth place. And Gareth Mcallister making his way across the finish line for sixth place. Finley Fitzsimmons and Troy Banks out of the race, seventh and eighth respectively. And here is our results for our sprint race here today. Daniel Beauchamp, first place. Corey Sabo in second. Manuel Gomez in third. Alex Roggenbuck in fourth. Mark Martinez in fifth. Gareth Mcallister in sixth. Finley Fitzsimmons in seventh. And Troy Banks in eighth place. Now, let's see here. We are going to have a very quick word with our race winner and our sprint race winner, Daniel Beauchamp. And that's going to wrap up our post-race interviews for today. And we will carry on. Let's get Daniel Beauchamp here in the booth. If we can get him in here. Just one moment, folks. All right, and Daniel Beauchamp, can you read me, sir?
Hello.
Daniel, you had, well, I would say a textbook race for today. You finished out both the feature and the sprint race, first place, and you led practically the entire time in both the feature and the sprint. So, Daniel, you seem to be quite comfortable here at Spa. What was your what did you do to the car? What kind of jet fuel did you put in it, and where can I buy some?
It's exclusive. Sorry, but yeah, it was a it was a good race. Yeah, I'm really happy with finishing first in both, especially the sprint race, because getting out of getting that out of that eighth position, making my way through all the cars, I got pretty lucky, I guess, with the first lap. Lots of people making mistakes, and halfway through the first lap, I think I was behind Corey, and it was just a matter of getting in front of Corey. And then it was pretty intense for those last few, or well, for the whole of the sprint race really. Once I was past Corey, he was really putting the pressure on, and if I had made any mistakes, any significant mistakes, then he would have taken the position.
Yeah, absolutely. Corey was definitely, he was consistently improving as the race seemed to move on. And yeah, it definitely seemed like Corey was waiting for an opportunity to open up and try and get around you and take that first place position. But Daniel, you held him off. You held off and worked your way through the entirety of the field with ease, I would say. Corey Sabo being the only driver that seemingly was giving you a lot of pressure here. Now, going forward through the rest of the series. We had small numbers today, but we obviously can't predict the future and look into how many drivers will have the next race. So what are your thoughts on the rest of the season? What are your thoughts on next race? And kind of what are you thinking going forward?
I mean, I'm hoping more people show up next week. I think today being the day after Christmas, weren't expecting that many drivers to show up. We should definitely have more people back next week, so should definitely be a more interesting race.
Absolutely. Well, Daniel, I thank you for coming out here in the booth and having a word with me before I let you go here. Before you head out, though, is there anyone at home watching the broadcast or anyone that you want to give a shout out to in general before you head out and celebrate your win here today?
Yeah, I'll just give a shout out to Gareth, or Gary as he likes to be called. Big motivational speaker, and he really talked me through that race.
Absolutely. Well, Daniel.
All right, Mason. Yeah.
Thank you for coming out here, Daniel. You have a great night, and I will see you next week.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, everyone. That was Daniel Beauchamp in the 451 taking home the podium for our feature and our sprint race for today. My name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you tonight's action. 1080p 60 frames a second. This was the ANSE 3D Spa Day Grand Prix for the Team Goon Squad Formula One Challenge. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. I will see you all next week for the next one. Same time, same place. Have a good night, everyone. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
Driver Carrington gets dumped by Benami. The leader